Shockingly humiliated by saleswomen, simple woman reveals incredible secret, she's the owner. Sarah stood inside the upscale boutique on Main Street, her fingers grazing the expensive fabrics. Every inch of her felt out of place amid the elegant displays and mocking laughter of the young saleswomen. Their eyes bore into her, judging her thrift store outfit and the faded bags under her eyes. She was used to the whispered remarks, the giggles that followed her around. They made her feel small, insignificant, a mere shadow of the vibrant woman she once was. In her heart, she harbored dreams of something more, for herself and her family, yet those dreams seemed to wither under the weight of ridicule. It was a particularly cruel afternoon when she overheard bits of conversation floating through the air like butterflies. "Can you believe that woman?" One saleswoman's voice dripped with disdain. "She looks like she walked out of a garage sale." The laughter that followed left a bitter taste in Sarah's mouth. What did they know of her struggles? Her husband's illness, the sacrifices she made daily to keep food on the table for her 2 children. A flash of defiance flickered within her, a desire to confront them, to reclaim her dignity. But as she thought to speak, her voice faltered. Instead, she turned back to the racks, mind racing, heart sinking. She was just a secretary, an invisible cog in a relentless machine. The tension coiled tighter around her chest. How could anyone possibly take her seriously? The boutique, clearly out of her league, felt more like a prison than a haven. Weeks went by, the weight of that day still festering within her. Yet, the defining moment came unexpectedly when she stumbled upon a dusty box in her attic. The box held her father's legacy photos and articles that unveiled a truth she had never realized: her late father was the proud founder of that very boutique. Shock coursed through her veins, punctuated by rage at the years spent feeling unworthy. How could they laugh? How could they belittle her when it was in her blood? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. For the first time, Sarah was filled with resolve. The idea of a grand reopening danced in her mind, her chance to showcase her real self, the rightful owner of the boutique beneath layers of humiliation and ridicule. But as excitement bloomed, so did her fear. Would those same vindictive saleswomen, the very ones who had put her down, now be forced to look at her with respect? Would they finally see her as someone deserving of acknowledgement? Anxiety churned in her stomach as she envisioned facing them again. The day approached, but the knots in her chest tightened with each passing hour. Would she crumble before them? What if they laughed again, this time at her failure to measure up? As she stood backstage, her heart raced amidst the chatter of the crowd. A part of her wanted to flee back to her modest home, away from judgment, away from the spotlight. Another part, however, urged her to step out, to embrace her legacy. Yet the idea of revealing her identity to a room full of people caught in the web of their own expectations was suffocating. One hand rested on the door, thoughts swirling and crashing like waves, straining her resolve. This was her moment, yet terror loomed larger than ever. What if the weight of ridicule sank her? What if this final act of courage only resulted in the deepest cut of disappointment? Each breath came uneven as she hesitated, weighing the precarious balance of pride and despair, unsure of what lay waiting for her on the other side. Sarah inhaled deeply, savoring the faint scent of roses that lingered in the air just outside the boutique's entrance. The crowd's murmur swirled around her, a cacophony of excitement and expectation, yet the weight of self-doubt bore down on her shoulders like a leaden cloak. Every fiber of her being resisted stepping through that door. What would she say? How could she assert herself in a world that had only seen her as an outsider? With a sudden fervor, she gripped the doorknob, her heart pounding so fiercely it felt as if it might escape her chest. She reminded herself of the legacy she now claimed. This wasn't just any store, this was her father's dream, the very birthplace of a talent that lay dormant within her. The saleswomen couldn't strip her of that. She had every right to be here, even if they couldn't see it yet. Finally, she pulled open the door and stepped into the brightness inside. The boutique's interior dazzled with its shimmer and glamour, the chandeliers glistening like stars trapped in a glass universe. It felt surreal, standing where she had once only wandered timidly like a ghost. Voices hushed as she entered, a ripple of recognition spreading through the space. The saleswomen's sultry laughter turned into sharp whispers, cutting through the air like daggers aimed at her heart. For a moment, the oppressive feeling of insignificance washed over her, as their gazes bore into her like judgment. She staggered inward, each step echoing with trepidation and newfound purpose. They wouldn't see her as a mere secretary today. No, this was about claiming her identity. Sarah. A familiar voice reverberated from the crowd, a woman she recognized from years past. It was Anna, the boutique's former manager, who had encouraged her father to pursue his dreams. "Is that really you?" "Yes, it's me," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm here to show you all who I am, my father's daughter, the owner of this boutique." The energy in the room shifted, not yet with warm welcome but with palpable curiosity. "Is this a joke?" sneered one of the saleswomen, her lip curling in derision. As her heart raced, a sharp pain of anger ignited within her. The urge to retreat was strong, but years of belittlement surged into an unbreakable determination. "This is not a joke," Sarah insisted, her voice now dripping with barely contained fury. "You may not know me, but I know this place. I know fashion, and I know what it means to work hard. It's time to step out of the shadows." An unexpected spark ignited in the crowd as a small yet empowered "yes" rang out from a customer standing near the fitting rooms. It was as if a door opened, releasing months of pent-up frustration. The saleswomen shifted uncomfortably, their initial mockery now morphing into something akin to apprehension mixed with doubt. "I'm planning a grand reopening, and I want to revamp this boutique," she continued, her voice gathering strength. "We'll showcase not just the designs but the stories behind every piece. It's time for a new chapter." A moment's silence engulfed the room, and Sarah could feel the weight of her declaration settle like a stone. She stood firm, eyes scanning the faces that had once looked down on her. There was nothing frivolous about her resolve. She was ignited by urgency, determined not just to reclaim her father's legacy but to weave her own narrative within it. "Change starts now, and I will not be dismissed," she said, heart pounding like a war drum. "I challenge anyone who doubts me to engage with the vision I hold for this boutique." With that declaration, a mixture of intrigue and skepticism laced the air. Sarah recognized that she had crossed a threshold, confronting not just the saleswomen but also the fears that had held her captive for so long. But would the weight of their belittlements linger, or could she truly transform this space into a reflection of her worth? As conversations buzzed among the crowd, Sarah felt an unsettling energy swell. The day's outcome loomed over her, bringing both liberation and uncertainty. Had she stepped too far into the light, or had she finally stepped onto the path toward her true potential? The real battle, she realized, was not just with the saleswomen but with self-doubt, the final adversary she'd need to conquer. As she prepared for the responses that would surely come, the tension thickened in the air, and she sensed the unpredictable tide of change beginning to roll in. Would she embrace this metamorphosis, or would she falter under the weight of her fears? As her pulse raced, another voice broke through the chatter. "What happens next, Sarah?" A familiar tone mocked, pushing her to the edge of confrontation once again. The question hung in the air, daring her to show what she was really made of. The moment felt suspended in time, every eye burning into her, every breath loud in the reverberating silence. Sarah's mind raced, weighing every word with the gravity of a first impression. She knew that dismissing the mockery directed at her would only deepen her isolation. This was a reckoning, and she wasn't going to retreat. "What happens next?" "That depends on you." As she spoke, an electric current coursed through her, propelling her forward. She remembered her father's stories about resilience, about facing skeptics not with anger but with unwavering conviction. I'm not just here to defend my place. I am here to invigorate this boutique and create something meaningful. Laughter rippled through the crowd again, but it wasn't as sharp this time. She could sense unease beneath the surface of their smirks. Discomfort breeds change. The realization anchored her spirit, making the ground less tenuous beneath her. Why should we care about your vision? The same saleswoman from before challenged, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Sarah inhaled, grounding herself as she launched into what she had planned. Because fashion is not just about clothes. It's about the stories they tell, she began, inviting the onlooker's attention. I've spent countless nights sifting through our inventory, discovering the passion woven into each piece. It's time this boutique became a refuge for not just selling clothes but sharing dreams. A flicker of surprise darted across Anna's face, her supportive gaze urging Sarah on. Taking this cue, Sarah continued, I want to partner with local designers, create unique collections that reflect who we are, not just what trends dictate. This can be a place where every customer feels seen, where every employee's voice is heard. The crowd's skepticism slowly shifted. She noticed some nodding in agreement. Yet, doubts remained ingrained within the sales team. They thrived under a shield of cynicism, and Sarah still felt their lingering judgment. Your ideas sound beautiful, but they also sound naive, another saleswoman spoke, sharper this time. It takes more than just dreams to run a business. You need experience to lead us. Sarah felt the anger boiling again, a surge of indignation that threatened to spill over. She had seen her father pour his heart into this place, his hard work, failures, and victories all birthed here. Who were they to question her capability? But as swiftly as her frustration rose, so did her resolve to prove them wrong. I may not have the experience you all assume I need, but I have something more powerful, passion. Passion to see this boutique reach its fullest potential. Behind her facade of confidence, self-doubt still lingered like a shadow. Did she truly have what it took? The voices of doubt stirred, but now they were quieter, almost inaudible against her growing determination. She could feel it, the moment pivoting toward possibility rather than failure. You want proof, then let us make it a challenge, she declared, adrenaline kicking in. Let us host the grand reopening together. Bring me your ideas, your expertise. Let the boutique reflect our combined strengths. The challenge hung like a dare between them. She could feel the crowd shift, the air charged with anticipation. Let us prove that we can turn this boutique into something remarkable, she felt her confidence surging, her words gaining weight. This is more than just my father's dream, this can be our collective vision, incorporating every voice in this room. Do we fight against each other, or do we forge something beautiful together? There was a shift among the sales team, their skepticism replaced by curiosity. Some exchanged glances, considering her proposal. Sarah could sense the hesitancy broken by intrigue. This was her moment, yet she stood at the precipice, heart racing with the thrill of the challenge, but she was all too aware of the opposition lurking behind determined expressions. And if we fail? One of the saleswomen pressed, her question loaded with implications. If we fail, we learn, Sarah replied. But if we succeed? We pay homage to my father's dream and craft our own legacies. The room buzzed, conversations igniting over the possibilities she had proposed. The lingering weight of dismissal was lifting, yet Sarah knew she hadn't silenced every voice of doubt, particularly her own. As she stepped back, she felt lighter, but uncertainty galloped ahead. What if her aspirations were still too ambitious? Would her vision resonate deeply enough to create the necessary change, or had she merely thrust herself into a cauldron of fierce resistance? Every heartbeat was a reminder of the stakes she had claimed. As murmurs swelled, she turned to Anna, her former mentor. What now? Anna's gaze was unwavering, filled with an intensity that mirrored the quest for clarity within Sarah. Now, you prepare yourself for the battle ahead. You may have made your mark today, but the real work is just beginning. Standing on this edge of transformation, Sarah prepared to step into the storm she had invited. The challenge lay ahead deeper than she had anticipated, and suddenly, she wondered if she'd be able to manage the expectations she stirred. The weight of purpose swirled around her, setting her heart on fire while leaving echoes of trepidation. What if this was more than just a battle for a boutique but for her very identity? She felt the eyes of her challengers burn into her, the real reckoning had only just begun. Sarah awoke the next morning with a knot of anxiety coiling tightly in her stomach. The excitement and adrenaline from the previous day had given way to the harsh realities of what lay ahead. She had invited opposition, but now, faced with the potential for failure, the challenge felt monumental. The boutique's future, her father's legacy, and her own self-worth were tightly entwined in this endeavor. As she brewed her morning coffee, she stared out the bright kitchen window, letting the sunlight bathe her in warmth. She tried to draw strength from the sunlight's embrace but found herself grappling with her unrelenting self-doubt. Did she have what it would take? The clarity of her goals had shone brightly under the spotlight of defiance, but now, alone, the doubt surged forward with a vengeance, inviting a whisper of temptation to give in and retreat. Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Sarah made a plan. Today, she would approach each team member, inviting open dialogue about their ideas for the grand reopening. She would create a space for collaboration, reinforcing the notion that every voice mattered. This wasn't just about proving herself, it was about transforming the culture within the boutique. Stepping into the boutique later that day, she felt the familiar sense of fabric and polished wood mixing with the electric tension in the air. The sales team was already gathered, chatting, some glancing her way with apprehension, while others wore begrudging expressions that reminded her of yesterday's confrontation. It would have been easy to shrink back and tread lightly, but fortitude had taken root. Now was not the time to falter. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady but her heart racing. "I know many of you have strong opinions about the direction we should take, and I want to hear from all of you. This is about us, not just about me." The atmosphere shifted slightly, a mingling of confusion and curiosity. Anna nodded appreciatively, her recognition fueling Sarah's resolve. "Let us divide into groups and brainstorm ideas. Think about what we want our reopening to represent, and how we can include local designers. I want to see this boutique not just sell but tell stories communities connect with." Murmurs emerged, some agreeing, but others still skeptical of her abilities. One of the more vocal saleswomen, Melissa, sneered, "Sounds like a nice daydream, Sarah, but you need to be grounded in reality." Sarah felt a rush of indignation but channeled it into focus. "Let us make it a reality then. I'm here to listen. Behind every idea, there's potential, and with your experience, we can bring something special to life." Small groups formed, conversations crescendoing into a buzz. As Sarah moved from one cluster to another, gathering input and facilitating discussions, something shifted within her. Each idea echoed the spirit of collaboration she aimed to cultivate. They spoke passionately, voices no longer dripping with derision but bursting with creativity. Yet, as Sarah engaged with their visions, a nagging thought twisted in the back of her mind. What if these conversations were merely perfunctory circles? What if they harbored deeper resentments that could turn the tide against her? She felt the weight of expectation from the sales team as the day slipped by. Could she inspire genuine belief in her vision, or was her naivety a flaw they would exploit? As the brainstorming session wrapped up, she noted the progress they made but also sensed the current of opposition bubbling beneath their willingness. They had bought into her vision, but would they remain on board when obstacles inevitably arose? Standing in front of the bustling boutique, she gazed upon the familiar sign above the entrance. This place was her heart, and she had built a bridge to her team, a bridge she realized needed reinforcing. As uncertainty loomed, forcing her to confront the fears that lurked, Sarah understood she would need to brace herself for a confrontation not just with her sales team but with her own self-doubt, still lurking on the fringes. She would have to prepare them for the challenges to come, both external and internal. "Are you ready for this?" she whispered to herself, determination mingling with apprehension. The push for her vision was on the cusp of becoming a mountainous task, but in embracing this uncomfortable upheaval, there lay a chance for discovery both in herself and in her emerging role as a leader. With a deep breath, she marched back inside, her mind steeling itself for the coming storm. Would her efforts to cultivate a culture of collaboration endure despite the looming threats of skepticism? The trial of her vision had only just begun. The morning light filtered through the boutique's windows as if showcasing the day's potential, a stark contrast to the turmoil within Sarah. She'd no sooner settled into the chaos of the morning than the weight of her decisions prodded at her, a persistent reminder of what was at stake. Today wasn't just another day, it was a test of her leadership, her vision, and ultimately, her resolve. As the team carried on with their discussions from the previous day, Sarah positioned herself slightly apart, observing. The chemistry within each group revealed a delicate balance of camaraderie and tension. Laughter echoed in one corner while a heated debate raged in another, where voices climbed higher with each passing moment. This wasn't merely retail strategy, it was a clash of creative energies, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Finally mustering her courage, she stepped forward. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, raising her voice yet managing to keep it even. "I'd love to hear what you all are discussing." The groups hesitated momentarily before inviting her in. However, her presence was met with mixed reactions. While Anna greeted her warmly, Melissa's cold demeanor spoke volumes of her lingering skepticism. Sarah noticed the way Melissa narrowed her eyes, and a chill traveled down her spine. Could she truly unify her team, or was she clinging to a fading dream? With renewed determination, she engaged with one group that was hovering over a mood board filled with inspirations for the new collection. The buzz of excitement was infectious. "This is fantastic," she said, genuinely impressed. "What if we also featured a local artist's work to represent their narrative?" The responses that followed were a blend of enthusiastic nods and frustrated sighs. "But that's not practical," Melissa interjected, hands on her hips. "You can't just throw in artists' exhibitions and expect it to gel with our sales targets." Sarah scrambled to collect her thoughts, heart racing as she confronted Melissa's challenge. "I understand your concerns, but if we don't stand out, we'll be lost in the noise. Why not take the risk together? We could be ahead of the curve instead of chasing it." The words hung in the air, tasting like iron sweet but laced with trepidation. Some employees nodded in agreement, but she could see others still simmering under disbelief. How had she unwittingly become a line in the sand, rather than get bogged down in the quicksand of confrontation? Sarah took a deep breath and transformed her approach. "Let us form a creative committee, a small group that can push boundaries without risking everything. You'll help form the vision, and we can test a few ideas at the reopening." Seizing the opportunity to redirect, she issued an invitation rather than a command. It was a conscious choice to empower, not dictate. She sensed the shift tentative but there, and for the first time, a fragile hope filled her with warmth. "Fine," Melissa finally conceded, arms uncrossing just slightly. "But don't think you'll get away without doing the groundwork. We still work in a business, not a gallery." The hint of a challenge lingered, embedded in her tone, but Sarah grabbed the lifeline. Later, with the groups having calmed, they delved back into their discussions. Sarah moved fluidly from one to another, recognizing potential in each voice. Yet, lurking in the back of her mind was the gnawing fear of their divided beliefs lingering just out of sight. For every spark of creativity ignited, a shadow of doubt persisted. As the day unfolded, Sarah felt herself caught in the crosshairs of leadership and vulnerability. Each interaction, each idea shared, exposed her strengths and weaknesses. Slowly, one thread of resolve began to weave into another. But was her determination enough to change perceptions permanently? With the day winding down, Sarah gathered her team for a final huddle. "I believe in the potential we have to create something special, something that reflects all of our strengths. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but if we push through, I promise it'll be worth it." And yet, the lingering question churned within her: what would happen when the pressure mounted, when the tasks became overwhelming? The unease resurfaced as she considered her team's responses to the inevitable obstacles ahead. As they dispersed for the day, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her father's old business partner, reminding her of a forthcoming industry event. Sarah's heart raced. Would this become an opportunity for her to show her team's new vision, or would it be another moment of vulnerability laid bare? The stakes had just risen, and cornered by possibilities, she felt the creeping shadows of doubt squeeze her heart once more. With a resolve to dig deeper, she pondered what it would mean to confront not merely her team but the professional landscape that awaited her. What would she reveal about herself and her leadership in the process? Would she rise to the occasion, or allow fear to dictate her actions once more? The next morning, Sarah awoke with an unsettling mix of anticipation and anxiety swirling in her chest. The industry event loomed over her like an unfinished painting, each brushstroke revealing the potential to either elevate her vision or expose her insecurities. As she dressed, she practiced the words that had eluded her the previous day: a call to her team, an invitation to join her in shaping the future. But the larger question haunted her: what if they laughed? What if, instead of inspiring confidence, she stirred doubt? In the boutique, the atmosphere buzzed with a new energy. Team members filtered in, exchanging excited conversations about the event, yet Sarah felt a strange gulf between herself and her team. Today, she wore her role like a shield. It kept her safe, but at the same time, it isolated her. "Sarah, good morning." Anna greeted her with enthusiasm, though Sarah sensed a fractured undercurrent in the warmth. "Hey, Anna," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. "Are everyone's ideas ready for the pitch?" "They're working on it. But I'm not going to lie, Melissa's a bit skeptical about some elements." A small weight settled in Sarah's stomach. She had feared discord. But in her heart, she also knew that underestimating themselves could be the biggest hurdle. She needed to shift the narrative away from Melissa's reservations and focus on a vision that reflected the strengths of everyone involved. During the morning meeting, Sarah set the tone. "Let's talk about what we want our presentation to convey. This is a chance to show not just our products but our identity. Let's think bold, out of the box." Melissa crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "That's all fine, but if we don't nail the business side, none of that will matter." Tightening her grip on her notes, Sarah resisted the urge to push back defensively. "True, but how we present ourselves can make a significant difference. Can't we merge the creative and practical? Let's put our hearts into this." Melissa narrowed her eyes but remained silent. Sarah chose to delve deeper, reaching beyond the surface. "I understand that practicality is important, but sometimes creativity needs to take precedence if we're to brand ourselves uniquely." A few team members chimed in, rallying around Sarah's vision. Notices of enthusiasm began to ripple through the room, and yet Melissa remained a hardened front. Moments later, feedback flowed like a current between ideas. It became less about winning over Melissa and more about carving a shared identity for the team, one that mingled ambition with creativity. As they crafted their vision, a much-needed release unfolded, inspiration ignited from within, revealing elements about themselves they hadn't realized. The day unfolded with a sense of optimism, but as they continued to develop their strategy, a lingering shadow whispered reminders of Sarah's inadequacies. What if the progress she felt was an illusion, a facade that would crumble under scrutiny? When the session concluded, Sarah gathered her notes, the hum of activity surrounding her. A brave thought bubbled to the surface. Perhaps it wasn't just about the ideas presented but also about who she had become as a leader during this metamorphosis. Each conversation forged connections, even the challenging exchanges with Melissa. Later, as the team disbanded, Sarah sensed an understated growth in how they viewed her. Every idea shared became a thread woven into the larger tapestry, and she wanted to nurture that. Her insecurities began to fade in the light of her own commitment to growth. Her moment of truth arrived when she received another message from her father's former business partner. "Looking forward to seeing you at the event." It read, but beneath the anticipation lay an undercurrent of dread. Standing by her boutique's window, Sarah mulled over the impending challenge. She understood that this was more than a chance to represent the business, it was an opportunity to embrace the identity she had forged within. She was not just the leader standing against skepticism but an owner determined to rise above doubt. But as the event drew closer, she felt the pressure mounting. A deeper truth started to reveal itself. Would her newfound confidence be enough to silence her doubts? What skeletons from her past might crop up to threaten the very vision she was ready to showcase? The balance of this transformation teetered precariously, shaping Sarah's destiny as she prepared to walk into the unknown. Soon enough, she would have to confront the legacy of her father, her own fears, and the harsh expectations of the industry. Little did she know, the real revelation was just around the corner. As Sarah paced the boutique, her mind whirled like leaves caught in a tempest. The wavering confidence that had surged during the team meeting was overshadowed by a tightening knot of anxiety. She glanced at her reflection in the shop window, a woman balancing ambition with a wave of self-doubt. What would everyone think when they discovered she was just the same as them, struggling to conquer their fears? Determined to reduce her worries to mere shadows, Sarah called her team for one more meeting. She wanted their insights to strengthen her resolve, to weave their collective thoughts into the fabric of her presentation. "Let us meet again, just the five of us," she proposed. "I want us to brainstorm what we truly want to communicate." The room felt charged, and she sensed the weight of her invitation. As they gathered, Sarah took a moment to observe each member's demeanor. Anna's hopeful gaze, Melissa's skeptical frown still stubbornly etched on her face. But this time, Sarah didn't shrink back. She was no longer merely content to play the role of leader, she wanted to delve deeper beneath the surface layer of their collaboration. "I know we've covered a lot," she began, her voice steady and firm, "but I think we can enhance the narrative of what we're going to present. It shouldn't just be about numbers, it should tell a story." Melissa shifted in her chair, a flicker of intrigue crossing her face. "Storytelling is great and all," she retorted, "until it doesn't resonate with sales. Then how about we blend both?" Sarah countered, feeling a surge of courage. "What if we present our numbers within our story? Let us create a narrative that highlights not only who we are but also why our pursuit matters." The conversation deepened, a river of thoughts flowing more freely. Ideas mingled, clashed, and transformed. Sarah felt invigorated as her team embraced her vision, building upon it carefully, layer by layer. Each word spoken by her team revealed strength she hadn't recognized before. Anna's flair for language, Melissa's analytical mind, yet, amidst the camaraderie began an unsettling awareness. In the excitement of their collaboration, Sarah noticed her tendency to over-rely on her team for validation. Her stomach churned as she questioned whether her contributions were genuine or merely responses to the encouragement of the group. What did it mean to be a leader if she still felt submerged in self-doubt? The moment stretched, turning vibrant ideas into tangible plans. But Sarah's personal struggle persisted. She found herself retreating to the silence of her office later that day, grappling with the weight of her own expectations, and a hard truth emerged from her reflection: recognition from the team couldn't fill the void of her own self-acceptance. As twilight settled, shadows draping the boutique, she shut her eyes, inhaling deeply. Everything she hoped to achieve now hinged on confronting the core of her fears. Sarah slowly penned a list. Her doubts weighed against her competencies. What if they laugh? No longer resonated. Instead, a new thought emerged: what if I'm stronger than they think? With each word she scratched onto the page, a semblance of clarity began to blossom. Maybe the industry wouldn't just judge her on presentation, perhaps it would value the courageous identity she was beginning to carve out. It was an internal revolution, one she needed to claim as her own, but even as satisfaction filled her for a fleeting moment, unease washed over her when the notification chimed. A new message from her father's former business partner surfaced, this one less friendly in tone, hinting at unresolved tension and past mistakes. Fear seeped back in as Sarah realized that the moment they had been building towards was not merely a team display, but the re-examination of her legacy and its haunting ramifications. What skeletons lingered in her father's past that could threaten not just her pitch but her purpose in this burgeoning business? Determined not to let the past dictate her future, Sarah steeled herself. The time had come to Confront her reality head-on. She was no longer just facing doubt, she was ready to confront the very roots from which her insecurities had flowered. As her heart raced, a single question echoed in her thoughts: would she be ready to unveil truths about herself that might shape not just her destiny but the very identity of the business she now led? The following morning dawned with a crisp clarity, yet Sarah felt a heavy fog clinging to her thoughts. She couldn't shake off the chilling sensation instigated by the message from her father's former partner. The words replayed in her mind, igniting a spectrum of anxiety, the kind that flourished where deep-seated fears resided. Would she have to confront the specters of her father's past in order to secure her future? Sitting at her desk, she closed her eyes, attempting to harness her turbulent thoughts. She needed to prepare for the presentation ahead, possibly the most pivotal moment of her career. Her fingers hovered over her laptop keyboard, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins was diminishing her focus. Instead of diving into her slides, she pulled out the list she had created the night before, her doubts and competencies laid bare. There it was, raw and unrefined. What if they laugh? Still screamed back at her. She pushed the page away momentarily, letting her breath settle. But the yawning chasm of uncertainty wasn't going to close easily. I will not be like him, Sarah whispered to herself, shaking off the reflection of her father that threatened to overshadow her resolve. He had left a legacy steeped in shadows and secrets, and she had vowed to step into the light. All she had to do was learn to trust in her own strength. As the day unfolded, Sarah felt compelled to gather her thoughts and approach Melissa, who had remained critical but also insightful during their last meeting. Sitting across from her, Sarah noticed the small details: the way Melissa's pen tapped against her notepad, a telltale sign of her unfiltered thoughts simmering below the surface. "Can we talk?" Sarah ventured boldly, her heart thumping as uncertainty seeped into her voice. Melissa looked up, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "About what?" "About my concerns with the upcoming presentation and about how we can strengthen our narrative," Sarah replied, courage swaying her voice. "I really want to integrate both the numbers and our story, but a part of me questions if it will resonate. Do you think we're on the right track?" Melissa leaned in, her expression softening. "You know, I've been hard on you because I see potential. Don't underestimate the power of your vision. You're more than just a saleswoman, you're a business owner. That alone shifts the narrative." While Sarah appreciated the support, a knot tightened in her chest. "But am I really? I mean, a part of me still feels like I'm playing dress-up in my father's shoes." An uncomfortable silence settled between them before Melissa finally spoke, her voice lowered. "You have to break from that, Sarah. Define your own story. Show them you are your own person, not just a reflection of your father." Somewhere within, Sarah felt a spark ignite. Perhaps it was time to own her narrative entirely. No more hesitations, she had the foundation to stand firmly in her own identity. Driven by newfound clarity, Sarah returned to her office, invigorated. She envisioned not just presenting numbers, but a tale of perseverance, ambition, and the strength of his daughter forging her path. That felt like the direction she needed to take. As she delved into her preparations, the haunting specter of her father's legacy still loomed but now informed her resolve. If she could face the past without letting it define her, then maybe she truly could succeed. Just as she was gathering her thoughts for the presentation, her phone chimed again, this time with a notification from an unknown number. Hesitation washed over her as she unlocked the screen, only to find it was a message from her father's former business partner, demanding a meeting to discuss important matters regarding their shared past. The tension in Sarah's stomach tightened. It seemed that confronting the past was no longer an option, it was now an impending necessity. What could they want to discuss that could potentially unravel everything she'd worked for? The words loomed ominously, whispering a chilling reminder that her past was clawing its way into her burgeoning present. Would she be ready to face whatever truth lay hidden behind that door? Today would not just be about business, it would define how she began to shape her own destiny. The sun hovered just above the horizon, scattering golden light across Sarah's desk, yet she felt shrouded in darkness. The demand from her father's former partner weighed heavily on her, a storm cloud gathering over her mind as she scrolled through the message again. Each word clawed at her insides, threatening to pull her into a web of familial complications she had long sought to escape. What do they want? What do they know? She whispered, pacing her office. Anxiety surged. Her father had treaded in murky waters, and now those same depths rippled in her direction. What did it mean for her ambitions? Realizing her presentation was less than 24 hours away, Sarah forced herself to redirect her focus. She had to harness the energy from anger and uncertainty into something productive. Should she prepare to play the part of the daughter, or was it time to rise as the owner? She set her jaw, refusing the pull of insecurity. No more being defined by someone else's legacy. Determined to plan ahead, Sarah plucked out her notebook, flipping to the pages filled with ideas in her own chaotic handwriting. She needed to refine her story, not just a recitation of numbers, but an authentic narrative that interwove the essence of her identity. The scars of her past were not the whole truth of who she was, they became the backdrop for her emergence. Think, Sarah, she murmured, pacing. What do they? Before she could finish, a flash of insight struck. What if she delivered her presentation not just as a response to the past, but as a declaration for the future? If her father's history wove through her life, then surely she could navigate the currents, make it serve her, not define her. Fueled by the thought, Sarah drafted an outline on her whiteboard. She separated facts from feelings, juxtaposing the hard numbers against her own lived experiences. About devastating losses, about the risk of familial failure, about how she survived and thrived despite the shadows. Each observation etched deeper into her goals, her voice rising in her mind as she envisioned the room a sea of faces eager to listen. A knock interrupted her focus. Sarah? You got a minute? It was Melissa. Of course, come in. Sarah welcomed, forcing a smile despite the tension still residing in her chest. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, Melissa said, closing the door behind her. Have you made any strides on the presentation? Actually, yes, Sarah replied, rolling her shoulders back. I've been considering how to frame our narrative going forward, how my perspective as an owner changes things. Melissa's brow quirked in interest. That essay start. You do realize that connecting your story could make the numbers resonate? Yes. I want them to see me as more than inheriting a legacy. I want them to understand how I'm shaping something new and revolutionary, Sarah declared, conviction rising in her voice. That's what I'm talking about. Channel that energy into your presentation, Melissa urged. But remember, there's a fine line. If they sense even a hint of desperation or fear when you're discussing your father's past, it could unravel everything. Her words hung heavy in the air, and Sarah inhaled deeply. It echoed the theme that had grown clearer: she couldn't let fear steer her narrative. With each passing moment, Sarah felt herself evolving from the child of a prominent businessman to a force all her own. As they continued to brainstorm, Sarah felt a rush of confidence surging within her. They honed in on keywords that reflected strength, resilience, innovation, determination. But as they sharpened her message, an undercurrent of dread remained. What if tomorrow shone light on truths too staggering to confront? Would she be ready? The possibility of unearthing demons in that meeting gnawed at her, but she firmly pressed it aside for the moment. She couldn't afford to falter now. Just as they pieced together the final details of her presentation, another notification chimed on Sarah's phone. The message this time was from the same unknown number: meeting at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Bring anything related to your father's files. A chill ran down her spine. The weight of that message was a stark reminder that she had to confront her past head-on. She exchanged glances with Melissa, the air teeming with unspoken tension. This meeting was no longer just about business, it marked a monumental confrontation. Would she walk into that office as the owner, or would she let her father's shadow envelope her once again? Tomorrow would shape everything. Sarah stood at the threshold of the boutique, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Today was the day she would introduce the new vision for her father's legacy, the culmination of months of preparation and a battle against skepticism. She had transformed from an uncertain woman cloaked in self-doubt into a confident entrepreneur eager to step into her rightful place. Each breath she took felt charged with purpose. It was finally time to reclaim her narrative. The bustling atmosphere inside the boutique enveloped her as she entered. The team had gathered, a palpable energy weaving through their discussions. This was her moment, the culmination of countless hours spent collaboratively crafting a pitch that represented not just numbers but their shared ambition. With a deep breath, Sarah moved to the front, ready to present the future she envisioned. "Good afternoon, everyone," she started, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "Today, I want to share the evolution of our brand and invite each of you to be a part of this journey." Her gaze met the faces of her team, recognizing both the skeptics and supporters. Each glance allied her with their shared mission, a future where creativity and practicality harmonized. As she delved into her presentation, weaving together metrics with personal anecdotes, the atmosphere shifted. No longer was she simply her father's daughter, she was a vision bearer, instilling hope and partnership in her voice. "We have a unique opportunity to redefine this boutique, not just as a retailer but as a community hub for storytelling and fashion," she proclaimed. As brand new ideas flowed, so did her resolve. Each word she spoke seemed to dissipate the skeptical energy, morphing it into curiosity and even enthusiasm. When she discussed the partnerships with local designers, enthusiasm spread like wildfire, igniting flickers of interest across her team's faces. They had been longing for a voice, longing for originality, and now they were beginning to embrace it. Sarah noticed Melissa leaning forward, her skeptical posture softening, and for a fleeting moment, gratitude washed over Sarah. She had spent countless hours worried that Melissa's criticisms would undo her confidence. But today, she stood satisfied that not only had she learned to navigate opposition, she had clarified her vision and refined her leadership. "You didn't just speak numbers, you crafted a narrative," Anna interjected, nodding in agreement. "You connected threads that bring all of us into this story." The energy in the room continued to shift, from one of doubt to one of collaboration. Passionate ideas flowed among the team as Sarah opened the floor for questions. Doubts were addressed, and criticisms were welcomed with open arms, culminating in a collective fluidity that breathed new life into the boutique. However, as the presentations wrapped, Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, an urgent reminder that the meeting with her father's business partner loomed ahead. This was the moment of reckoning. She had anticipated the final confrontation with her past. Her deep-seated fears clashed with her triumph, but she refused to allow them to overshadow her newfound competence. The meeting arrived swiftly. In the office where her father once stood, she prepared to face the shadows of her inheritance. The air felt thick with tension as her father's former partner entered, their expressions revealing understandings filtered through legacy and ambition. "Sarah," he began, his tone firm yet overly familiar. "I need to address some issues regarding the business that shouldn't be overlooked." She steadied herself, reflecting back on the strength she had cultivated. "I'm ready to embrace every aspect of this business, including its entirety," she responded succinctly. With unwavering resolve, she approached the legacy her father had left behind not as his child, but as a formidable leader poised to reshape the narrative. The ensuing conversation was not simply about business, it evolved into a discussion of ethics, vision, and the resilience of multigenerational leadership. As minutes turned into hours, Sarah was relentless, paralleling her father's history with her aspirations while reasserting her legitimacy. She left the meeting invigorated, a sense of concrete recognition settling in her heart. Walking back into the boutique, Sarah no longer felt fragmented between daughter and leader. With every moment of realization, she had stepped boldly into her role, illuminating a path of her own design. Their combined visions, hers and her team's, would shape the future of the boutique. At that moment, beneath the crystalline chandeliers of the store, Sarah finally achieved the recognition she sought. Her doubts dissipated in the light of unwavering self-assurance. She was the owner, she was a visionary, and most importantly, she was herself embracing the legacy while defining her future. Her journey from mere secretary to empowered entrepreneur manifested in unmistakable clarity, and with it, a profound sense of fulfillment. Now, her father's dream was intertwined with her own resolute ambitions, no longer overshadowing her but transforming her. To those out there who resonate with tales of individual perseverance and transformation, this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of uplifting these narratives through your actions.